So you were talking about the Rainforest Mind, and I know that that's part of the title of your books, but can you explain what that means, where the concept came from? Like, tell us what you mean by Rainforest Mind. This is a new phrase.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Well, back when I was teaching, these kids that I was working with were labeled gifted, and people are really kind of uncomfortable with that label, and it can be defined in different ways. And these children were identified by IQ tests usually, and that's a limited way of looking at what giftedness is. And so I wanted to come up with a metaphor or analogy that would explain it, where people would understand what it meant, and it wouldn't be limited to achievement or IQ scores. And so I came up with the analogy, the metaphor of the rainforest, to describe this population that you could see people as ecosystems, and some people are like meadows, and some people are like deserts, and some are like volcanoes, and some are like rainforests. And all ecosystems are beautiful and valuable and important and make a contribution. The rainforest ecosystem is just the most complex. And you can sort of stretch the analogy and say that, it contributes to the rest of the planet, which these people often do, make a contribution. They have a sense of social responsibility and want to make a difference. And that sort of fits with the analogy of the rainforest and the complexity of the rainforest and the intensity of it. And it's fertile, it's colorful, it's effervescent, which these people often are. And then we often don't understand them. So, and we cut down our rainforest, we're burning our rainforest. And it's sometimes these people are also cut down. I talk about, have you run into chainsaws in your life, because people they misinterpret your intensity, they misinterpret your curiosity and your love of learning. And some of these people don't do well in school because they already can read when they start first grade. And, so they have these abilities that are not understood. And so the rainforest, it's like we're all ecosystems are important. So it's not one is better than the other. It's just that this one is the most complex.
It's a perfect metaphor. I personally teach a lot through metaphors too, because I think it's the way that we can really understand things when we can put it in relational terms. And it's brilliant. It's just brilliant the way that you described it. And as you were speaking, especially about the educational system, I was thinking about a personal story that I wanted to share with you as an educator. I think you'll really appreciate it. I grew up in the state of New York, and my mom was actually a teacher in my school. And so we had statewide testing every year. And when I was in about third grade, I was a skilled reader, and I had to do a reading comprehension test. And my teacher was friendly with my mom because they were coworkers, they were colleagues. And my teacher went up to my mom and said, "I'm really worried about Melissa. She didn't answer any of the questions on this reading comprehension test. And we think something's wrong with her, And I went through educational testing, through the whole gamut. And my mom said to me, "Melissa, is there a reason that you didn't answer the questions?" And I said, "I wasn't interested in the story, and I didn't want to answer the questions." And it was this fiery, strong will in me that I was not willing to play the game. I was not willing to jump through the hoops or learn in the style that was being assigned to me. I was always a natural learner, and even in adulthood, I've avoided going back to school for a master's or a PhD, even though I know I would really enjoy it. I would enjoy the coursework because I didn't want to have to jump through the hoops of the exams and the papers. And, so I read books on neurobiology and sociology for myself, for enjoyment, but not in that traditional academic style. So when you were talking about how these kids don't do well in school and they get misdiagnosed, that was me. They couldn't figure out what was wrong with me, but what was wrong was that I have a rainforest mind. I had a strong will, and I wasn't willing to conform to meet and please those around me.
That is such a great example. That is like a perfect example of, of this population. Thank you for that example. The other thing is that that gifted children and adults, if they take a test and it's a multiple choice test, they can overthink the test, and you can explain why all of the choices could be correct depending on the circumstances, and so they can really not score well on tests for those reasons too. But people don't. Yeah, that's really hard for people to understand.
Absolutely. So I'm curious if you think it's important if sensitive people, if they know if they have a rainforest mind or not. Like, is it helpful for them to know if they do, or for parents to know if their children have this particular way of thinking and experiencing?
Absolutely. Absolutely, because otherwise they wonder what's wrong with them. And, it's hard to have relationships. It's hard to find other people that will relate to you at this level. You want to go deep, and, they're sort of more shallow. It's hard to find people that you're compatible with. So if it's because you have this rainforest mind, then you look for other rainforest minds. You don't blame yourself. You don't think that something's wrong with you. You just understand, oh, okay, this is what's going on. How do I find other people like me that will be interested in what I'm interested in? We'll want to go deep. We'll not just be happy with watching, The Bachelor on TV or something, it's like, or have big questions about the meaning of life. And that kind of thing. Yeah. So it's important. And for parents of the kids too, because there are certain things that these children do. They can be highly emotional, actually. They can be seen as immature because they're so emotional, and they have the tantrums, and but it's partly because they're feeling so deeply, and they see things that other children their age don't see, and they worry about the future, or they're worried about the climate at a very early age, or they're tuned in more. And again, it's like, if they're not understood as having rainforest minds, then they might be put in special ed. They might be put into programs that are just really inappropriate for them.
Absolutely. I heard you talking about the way that I interpret it was like the social component for children with rainforest minds. And I'm a coach for parents of highly sensitive children. And one of the things that I find parents struggle with when they have sensitive children or rainforest minded children is helping their kids navigate social relationships. I know for me personally, when I was growing up, I had like one best friend. I had friends, but I had one friend who at 41 is still like my one best friend. She's the one that I reach out to whenever something wonderful or terrible happens, even though we live now many, many, many miles apart from each other. And so I'm wondering, in your experience, if this is kind of normal, typical, common for these kind of children, if you have any soothing words for parents of these children so that maybe they don't worry if their kids maybe just have one or two really good friends, or if you have any tips for kids that are really struggling to make friendships, to socialize and have age-appropriate, healthy relationships. I also know sometimes these kids tend to connect with people that are much older or younger, so they can either be the caretaker, or so they can, relate to people that have more maturity. And, if they're an old soul, they might connect with these older ones. So any feedback that you have about these sort of social relationships that rainforest minded children have?
Yes. Well, the adults have it too. I mean, it's like, it's many of the clients who contact me are lonely because they haven't found anyone who they can really relate to and be themselves. They have to sort of slow it down, dumb it down, not share everything, not share all of their passions. It's like you find a friend who you can go to the movies with because they understand the films, and then another person is the reader, and the other person is you do athletic things with, you can't find one person who really does it all. It's really hard for the adults as well. With the kids, I tell the parents to let it be okay that they're friends with somebody that's older or younger. Don't worry that they have to find someone their age, because that might be hard. Find a mentor for them, find someone, maybe even an adult who they can do mathematics with because that's what they love, or the solar system, or, so, and if they're introverted, if they're, these highly sensitive, empathic, introverted kids, maybe they only have that one best friend, and maybe that's enough. They don't need lots of friends. They don't need to go to the birthday party where all the kids are running around and it's really loud. And, parents will say, what's wrong with my kid? They don't even want to go to birthday parties. And it's like, that's because, I had a parent tell me, it was their 4-year-old said, these children are so immature. Why are they running around? Why aren't they listening to me? So yeah, from an early age into adulthood, it really is, you have to work at finding people that you can connect with.